Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Luis Jesus Durant and this is Durant Comunicaciones. This channel is focused on corporate communication, branding, reputation, internal communications, and all the aspects related to communications in organizations. The idea is to improve our knowledge regarding to these kind of topics, and to do so, I usually share some articles that I found on the net, and but in this case, I would like to share with you guys a book, The Essentials of Corporate Communications: Implementing Practices for Effective Reputation Management. I want you to come along with me in order to understand this important topic, corporate communications. If you are here, maybe you are here because you want to understand, you want to implement, you want to know the main tools that are behind the communication management. You know that communications will help your organizations not only in terms of external communication, but it will help you to develop cohesion among the workers. They will get more motivation, and all those communication channels will help not only your brand, but the way the organization will position itself among its main stakeholders. That's the idea. So today I want to share with you the introduction of this important book. Cees van Riel, who is the author of this book, was a person who in the past, in 1997 more or less, or 1995, he wrote a book regarding to corporate identity, and this book was the base of my thesis degree when I was studying at university here in Lima, Peru. So this is why I wanted to share this particular author, because he has a different approach to corporate communications that I want to share with you. So today I'm going to read in my not perfect English, so I hope you understand the first part, the introduction of this book. So come along with me in order to discover a little bit more about corporate communications. So I'm going to share my screen for you to follow the conversation. This is the first part, and I want you to read with me or hear. Maybe you are just on the podcast. Introduction to the communication system. Do but take care to express yourself in a plain, easy manner, in well-chosen, significant, and decent terms, and to give a harmonious and pleasing turn to your periods. Study to explain your thoughts and set them in the truest light, laboring as much as possible, not to leave them dark nor intricate, but clear and intelligible. Miguel de Cervantes Saavedra, Preface to Don Quixote. Communication is the lifeblood of all organizations. It is the medium through which companies, large and small, access the vital resources they need in order to operate. It is through communication that organizations acquire the primary resources they need, such as capital, labor, and raw materials, and build up valuable stocks of secondary resources, such as legitimacy and reputation, that enable them to operate. Organizations secure access to these resources in two ways. First, by directly negotiating the prices and terms on which a resource is purchased. This requires direct communication between buyers and sellers and calls on familiar communication skills. Another way organizations gain control over valued resources is by influencing indirectly the context within which these exchanges occur. Through lobbying and collective action with other organizations, companies build entry barriers that can make it very difficult for rivals to enter their markets. Doing so operates a more hospitable environment in which to operate, individually through alliances and by joining forces with other companies and forming collectives. Managers can build up an image about how a particular issue or problem should be addressed. Let me fix the screen just for you to follow me in the best way possible. Okay. Thank you. In democracies like the US and Australia, for instance, the public affairs department of companies devote considerable time and energy in lobbying legislators to enact laws that will favor them over rivals. Often these departments get involved in building information campaigns designed to influence public opinion and pressure politicians to adopt preferred positions on contentious issues. Activist groups can be equally skillful at influencing public images. For instance, Greenpeace is well known for its successful efforts to influence public opinion about the harmful effects of corporate initiatives on environmental pollution and climate change. The organization has been extremely effective at getting media organizations to publicize its controversial marches and protests. Among its more famous campaigns was its action against Shell in 1995, following the company's decision to dispose of the defunct Brent Spar oil platform. Greenpeace's efforts to prevent the sinking of the platform into the North Sea generated worldwide media attention. On the issue of environmental pollution and vilified the Royal Dutch Shell Group in the minds of consumers for years to come. In similar ways, throughout the 1980s and 1990s, the activist organization ACT UP was very effective in calling attention to the pharmaceutical industry's pricing and distribution policies for AIDS drugs. ACT UP successfully swayed public opinion against the pharmaceuticals by staging theatrical sit-ins at corporate facilities of targeted firms such as Pfizer, Merck, and GlaxoSmithKline, and by developing mock-ads, posters, and other incendiary communications which they distributed widely and which were refused by the media. Communication is therefore at the heart of organizational performance. The success of an organization's effort to acquire resources and to influence the context within which it carries out its activities depends heavily on how well and how professionally a company communicates with its resource holders. We define an organization's communications system, the multiple tactical and strategic media it relies on to communicate with its stakeholder, as well as the message content it chooses to diffuse through those media. The communication system encompasses marketing communications, public relations, investor relations, and employee communications. It also includes the kinds of institutional communications an organization makes that are created to influence how issues are framed and the public debate that results about it. In its largest sense, it encompasses the initiatives that a company often undertakes to demonstrate social responsibility and good citizenship. Most of these good deeds are important in helping a company to build a more favorable and welcome social environment for its routine operations. From fragmentation to integration. This is another part of the reading. Let's continue. In the efforts to exert control over the acquisition of these valuable physical and symbolic resources, organizations have proliferated a multiplicity of specialized groups whose responsibilities are to communicate with targeted stakeholders. The modern organization typically operates through departments charged with community relations, government relations, customer relations, labor relations, human resources, both at the corporate and at the business unit levels. This kind of specialization has fostered a fragmentation of the organization's communication system that has severely limited its effectiveness over the year. The presence of multiple specialized centers of information, when they are not explicitly and strategically coordinated, stands in the way of creating consistency of external and internal corporate communications. Managers in different geographical locations or working for different parts of the same firm find themselves frequently contradicting one another and therefore conveying inconsistent impressions about the company and its products to resource holders. Faced with a growing variety of challenges to their operation in recent years, organizations have grown increasingly aware of the need to overcome fragmentation and to reduce the volume of inconsistent communications that they convey. They seek ways to improve coordination among the many different specialists involved in communication activities for the organization. The expression used to describe this trend is integrated communication, a systematic process for building a fully coordinated communication system inside the organization. When orchestration of communications is limited, an organization's image and reputation are put at risk. For example, it's clearly not a good thing when two entirely contradictory messages about a company appear in the same medium on the same day. Yet, it happens very frequently. Consider British American Tobacco. On the very same day that the UK manufacturer placed a costly advertisement touting its superior financial performance in a Dutch newspaper, the front page of the same paper announced the layoff of 123 employees in its Amsterdam branch. A similar inconsistency did significant damage to AT&T's image when in January 1996 the company famously announced plans for a record downsizing of 50,000 employees at the same time that the financial pages announced a record earnings for investors. The public lynching this companies receive as a result damage their image and points to a systemic failure of integration across the company's communication system. Boeing, the mammoth maker of airlines, provides yet another example. The company chose to place a full-page advertisement for the company on the back cover of The Economist precisely on the day of the 2-year anniversary of the 9/11 attacks on New York. The fateful day on which hijacked Boeing planes had been used as missiles by Al-Qaeda terrorists. The move was probably unwise and suggests that someone at Boeing was simply not paying close attention to integration. They failed to anticipate the actions and reactions that stakeholders would have to those simultaneous but contradictory messages. Incidents like these happen to all organizations. One cannot control everything at everywhere or everywhere. Nonetheless, we suggest here that it is feasible to put in place a more coherent process for orchestrating the different communication specialties and help to limit their negative effects. If AT&T and British American Tobacco and Boeing had sought to apply such an explicit process for coordinating investors' relations with media relations, these contradictions might have been avoided. And that is the subject of this book. Corporate branding and communication. The revived interest in integrated communication results not only from visible inconsistencies in the communication system, but also from a rising understanding that economic value can be created by strengthening corporate brands. The features of a company that employees, investors, customers, and the public associate with an organization as a whole, whereas much of our past interest in questions of integration can be traced to the mass marketing of product brands, the current emphasis in major companies is principally in the communication system that surrounds the corporate brand. The purpose of a corporate brand is to personalize the company as a whole in order to create value for the company's strategic position, institutional activities, organization, employees, and portfolio of products and services. The corporate brand is increasingly being used to cast a favorable halo over everything the organization does or says, and capitalize on its reputation. This is the cover of The Economist. The text was talking about, the author was talking about, in which Boeing posts an advertising of its planes, but in the same day, people was just two years later when this happened on New York. Okay, let's continue. An organization that wants to compete using its corporate brand is therefore challenged as never before to develop a coherent communication system. Various trends are making corporate brands more relevant about the world, and so are encouraging the visible push towards more integrative communication in organizations. Information availability. The proliferation of information sources and instantaneous transmission of information has created an environment in which people find it difficult to trust the products and services that are available to them. In these circumstances, customers, investors, and potential employees seek a better understanding of the organization that stands behind those products. Companies are increasingly using their corporate brands to infuse attractive mental and emotional associations into stakeholder transactions with the organization. Media mania. In recent years, companies and their top executives now perform in the media spotlight, making corporate brands and the reputation of the company behind the company's product brands a major source of distinctiveness and value. Advertising saturation. From banners to billboards to radio and television commercials, we are mentally assaulted with product messaging. As overloaded publics pay less attention to these messages, purchased advertising space has lost some of its historical effectiveness. Broader corporate brand building strategies rooted in public relations, sponsorship, and corporate citizenship have grown in importance in the media mix for influencing perception and cutting through the crowded media marketplace to position the company behind the products. Product commoditization. International expansion has fostered increasing homogeneity, I'm sorry my pronunciation, homogeneity in the kinds of products and services companies are selling across geographical markets. You cannot escape the proliferation of franchises around the world, whether in purchasing fast foods, beverage, or other consumer products. Where product and service differences between offering are slight, companies are using their corporate brands as a source of distinctiveness and differentiation. Globalization. Rivalry is on the rise due to the blurring of national boundaries and to the multi-market operations that companies develop to capitalize on regional difference in labor and to minimize logistical costs. When L'Oreal, Siemens, Ericsson, Shell, or Philips enter a new market, their reputational allies are a major force in attracting consumers and in negotiating attractive deals with local suppliers and regulators. Foreign companies are finding it beneficial to use their corporate brands to establish themselves internationally and to outcompete local rivals. Global corporate brands always attract attention, and research suggests that the attention they get is overwhelmingly favorable and endowed with prestige. For this reason, communicating about the corporate brand has become more important in recent years and is having a growing effect on how we assess a company's communication system. What makes for effective communication? Assessing systematically the effectiveness of a company's communication structure and its communication activities has dogged practitioners for years. Schutz, 1994, suggested calculating a return of investment (ROI) as a way to measure the results of an integrated marketing communication initiative. Katz and Landrevy propose measuring effectiveness by examining different kinds of consumer exposure, media coverage, product impressions, and personal contacts. Baldinger, 1996, suggested using the last three stages of the Advertising Research Foundation's model, ARF, recall, communication, and persuasion, to develop a measure of the impact of an IMC campaign. On the way to measure communication results is through its net effect on the company's brand equity. From a consumer point of view, brand equity is the differential effect that brand knowledge has on a consumer's response to the marketing of the brand. Brand equity measures the strength of the consumer's association with the brand and has two components: brand awareness, brand recall and brand recognition, and brand image, the strength, favorability, and uniqueness of consumer associations. Whereas brand equity describes the added economic value that a brand brings to the organization, brand image consists of the cluster of attributes and associations that consumers connect with the brand itself. Keller defined brand image as consumer perception about a brand as reflected by the brand associations that consumers hold in memory. Peart added that brand image is not a perceptual phenomenon affected by marketers' communication activities alone. They proposed that brand image is the understanding consumers derive from the total set of brand-related activities engaged in by the firm. From a branding perspective, the role of an integrated communication system is therefore to enhance brand equity by establishing the brand in the observer's memory, by linking strong, favorable, and unique associations to the brand, and by creating stakeholder motivation, ability, and opportunity to persuasive persuasive messages and retrieve brand information from memory when making a brand choice or recommendation. Brand-related communications influence the meaning associated with the brand and create an image for the brand. Advertising and public relations increase brand awareness and thereby increase the probability that a company's product and services, jobs, or shares will be evoked by resource holders, affecting perceived brand value and creating an image that influences how they view the company and its products. An integrated communication system, particularly if it communicates corporate brand values, ultimately influences not only brand equity but overall evaluations of the company. If the company brand can be more immediately retrieved from memory, it shows highly accessible association between the communication system and the corporate brand, and so demonstrates increased brand equity and improves overall reputation. A global reputation measure carried out with the resource holders of the organization can therefore act as a powerful tool for measuring the effectiveness of an integrated communication program. Although the communication system as a whole is generally viewed as a positive contributor to an organization's performance and reputation, specialized communication subfunctions often remain a weak link in the chain. In most of organizations, communications specialists tend to lack influence with top management. Experience suggests that the powerlessness of this specialist communication function largely results from a historical failure by communication specialists to take responsibility for their actions and demonstrate accountability for bottom line indicators like sales, profit, awareness, recall, or reputation. A notable exception is for marketing specialists who often demonstrate that their communication activities are directly responsible for sales increases. 2. A lack of a third third-party verification of contributions that communications make to the company's result. And 3, a tendency to remain remote from the business objectives being fulfilled by specialized communication activities. As we observe firsthand, that makes a weak argument for including communications specialists as members of strategic decision-making committees or involving them in the domain coalition organizations. The framework of this book. The purpose of this book is to suggest that a strategic focus on what we call the total communication system is the only way to overcome the existing fragmentation of communication in most organizations. By developing an integrated communication system, an organization can flesh out a structure for corporate communication that can assist in the implementation of strategic objectives, build brand and reputation, and thereby create economic value. The book proposes a simple framework for developing the corporate communication structure of any organization. As we have suggested, the effectiveness of an organization depends on its ability to attract key resources from stakeholders, be they capital, labor, or raw materials, as well as legitimacy and reputation. To succeed, organizations must therefore develop and maintain healthy, interactive relationships with their stakeholders. And the purpose of a company's communication system is to facilitate that engagement. Creating a system for corporate communication is therefore a vital component of every company's strategy setting and execution. The central question that we address in this book is: how can organizations best develop and manage an integrated communication system? As we have learned, no universal solution applies. Readers should therefore not expect to find here a panacea that will apply easily to all organizations. However, since 1980s, a rich collection of insights has developed from the study of management, marketing, and organizational communications in both theory and practice that make it possible for senior managers today to be better prepared to build an effective corporate communication system. The purpose of this book is to capture these insights succinctly, and we do so by applying the integrative model that we will see in figure 1.2. The model takes as its point of departure that the communication system is a key tool for guiding and executing corporate strategy. A strategy guides the selection of businesses in which the company competes and how the company wants to position itself in those businesses. As a market-leading innovator, follower, cost cutter, or premium-focused niche player, I'm sorry, I read it wrong. Strategy guides the selection of businesses in which the company competes and how the company wants to position itself in those businesses. As a market-leading innovator, follower, cost cutter, or premium-focused niche player. Okay. The company's relative strategic position defines key attributes and features the organization must be perceived to have by major stakeholders in order to be competitive and effective. In turn, these attributes have to be consistent with the organization's identity in order to be credible to observers. Credibility itself is judged on the basis of the company's existing reputation. Strategy, identity, brand, and reputation therefore jointly define the starting points for building the corporate communication system. The corporate brand is expressed by creating a sustainable corporate story that serves as a frame around which to hang the full array of communications the organization disseminates. The sustainable corporate story sets the stage for all expressions of the company's identity to stakeholders and constitutes its reputation platform. Although every organization has multiple stakeholders, we focus in this book on four primary resource holders and the specialized forms of communication in which they are involved. Financial audiences, investor relations, employees, internal communications, customers, experience marketing, and the public, issues management. Ultimately, the model of Figure 1.2 suggests that a coherent focus on the organization's communication system positively contributes to the favorable image that each specialized component of communication system develops, which in turn affects the development of positive stakeholder perceptions about the organization, improves its performance, and so increases its ability to acquire additional resources and succeed. As we suggest, a favorable corporate reputation is not an isolated objective, but a vital mean through which the success of the organization develops. Recent studies we have reviewed elsewhere validate the empirical relationship between organizational performance and corporate reputation. Orlitsky provide a detailed comparative analysis of 52 studies that verifies a systematic and robust empirical relationship between social and economic indicators of organizational performance. The rest of the book is divided into 11 chapters corresponding to key components of the model. Chapter 1 defines the perspective of corporate communication and its growing importance. Chapter 2 examines the link between corporate communications and corporate reputation, the perceptions that stakeholders have of an organization. Chapter 3 looks more closely at the roots of corporate reputation in the process of generating identity, identification, and support. Chapter 4 examines different methodologies for uncovering identity elements in an organization. Chapters from 5 to 8 examine in more detail how companies express themselves to targeted stakeholders. Chapter 5 begins by describing the rationale and process that organizations can use to develop strong corporate brands. Chapter 6 focuses on the creation of sustainable corporate stories. Chapter 7 deepens the implementation of those corporate stories through corporate campaigns targeted to four primary audiences: financial, employee, government, and public. Chapter 8 shows how 5 types of specialized communications can be used to carry out a corporate communication campaign. In Chapter 9 and 10, we turn to assessment. Chapter 9 suggests that the effectiveness of corporate communication system can be assessed by measuring corporate reputation systematically using appropriate measurements methods. Chapter 10 reviews important applied reputation research programs now in use by companies around the world. We conclude the book in chapter 11 by examining the organization of the communication function and exploring how internal and external communications can be orchestrated in practice. We end each chapter with short discussion questions designed to stimulate readers to think about how they might apply some of the issues raised. And these are some of the questions the author was talking about. Discussion questions. Pick a company with which you are very familiar. Describe the company's communication system. Who is responsible for the communication about products and services? Who is responsible for the corporate brand? Who is responsible for communicating with financial audiences, regulators, legislators, and with potential employees? Okay, so this was the introductory part of this book, Essentials of Corporate Communications Implementing Practices for Effective Reputation Management. In the next video, we are going to read the chapter 1 of this book for you to know and understand what the authors want to explain regarding to corporate communication management and how can we improve reputation, corporate reputation in our organizations, no matter if we are consultants or if we are working inside the company, in-house. Okay, so thank you for watching. Thank you for the patience. I know my English is not as good as I would like it to be. I expect I can improve it for you to understand me or understand to me in a proper way. Thank you very much. If you like this video, please thumbs up. Like the video, share the video, give me a comment. You know that it will help this channel to be more popular among those who are pretty interested in knowing more about communication, reputation, organizational and corporate communications, and the way we can manage these tools in a proper way. See you in the next video. Thank you very much. Bye.